Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a woman that her and I share the pro wrestling space in the ring announcer realm. She's also a broadcaster. She's even a United States uh, Navy individual. She served, and I'm very proud to have her on the D-Lew Podcast. The one and only Savannah Gall. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It took us forever to get together, but finally we're together.
Yeah, no, it's we've crossed paths maybe about 2 years ago on social media, and just it's just crazy how professional wrestling just kind of just it's almost like magnetic, right? Where we just kind of
Yeah.
just align, you know what I mean? So like I said, finally an opportunity for us to connect and talk about all of that you have going on with life, pro wrestling, and everything in between. And speaking of life, look, obviously you're a proud native of Cincinnati, Ohio. You're a proud Bengals fan and all Cincinnati sports, and we've had numerous
Yes.
conversations. So, talk about Savannah growing up in Cincinnati.
So I went to a Catholic school. Well, I was pretty much private school my whole time.
Okay.
I went to, I don't know if you know who Marva Collins is.
No,
Have you ever
no,
heard of her?
not familiar.
She
No.
she was a black educator. She opened up a school in Cincinnati or in Chicago, but there was a school in Cincinnati. So I went there. So I mean, it's considered an all black preparatory school. I went there from second to fourth grade, and then went to a Catholic school my whole time up until eighth grade. Went to an all girls Catholic high school my freshman year, then transferred to North College Hill, where OJ Mayo was
No,
at the
OJ Mayo,
time.
yes.
Yes, OJ Mayo, Bill Walker, and all of them. So there was like a lot of media coverage around our high school at the time. I was a basketball cheerleader during that time. And then my dad got active duty orders to DC, so we had to move to Virginia
Oh,
after that. So I've been in Virginia since.
okay. Wow. So, and I hear a lot of, and I've had contemporaries of mine, friends of mine that were military, as I don't want to say military brats, but I mean it's like you kind of have to
Mhm.
move. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
what was that like in regards to picking up and moving to a whole new area, a part of the country, and having to, I guess, connect all new dots now with like new friends, classmates, etc.
I was lucky enough to not have to move around because my at the time my dad was National Guard, so he only served on the weekends and then like 2 weeks out of the year, like Army Reserve.
Okay.
It just so happened when 9/11 happened, he
Mm.
got deployed twice. So
Oh
he went to
wow.
Bosnia the first time in 2001, has
Okay.
been to Iraq a couple of times, missed my high school graduation.
Mm.
Um, but it was when he actually converted from the reserves to active duty. That's when I had to move.
Got it. Got it. Totally understand that. Now, you say you were cheerleaders, so was it a little bring it on? You know what I mean? Was it a little bit of that? So talk about being a cheerleader.
It was fun. I still keep in contact with. It was just a small group of us, and we still keep in contact to this day. Um, I had fun. I mean, I tried to. When I moved to Virginia, I tried to try out. It just didn't work out.
Okay.
But the time when I was at North College Hill, I loved it.
Good, 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 good. Now, when was the first time that you laid eyes on pro wrestling? What was that moment? Was it a pay-per-view? Was it a show? Was it a live event? What was it that when you connected with wrestling for the very first time?
So it was when I was really little. I was at my uncle's house. He's a wrestling fan, and that was when WCW was going on, and he's
Okay.
a big Sting fan.
Mm,
So, every time I spent time with him, it was always we're watching WCW and we're watching Sting. And then as I grew up, I kind of took a step back from it. I'm actually also a NASCAR fan, so I like that whole time I was watching NASCAR races, and it wasn't until I was active duty Navy. I was in my barracks room. I was flipping through the channels, and it was AJ Lee that kind of brought me back in
Oh, wow. So that was a huge
during that
gap.
time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a huge gap. So you're talking about, 99, 2000, 2001, where WCW ended, and then AJ Lee, you figure 2010,
2011.
2012.
Yeah.
Wow, that is
Hmm.
a huge gap. It's about 10, 11 years. That's
Hmm.
incredible. But it's just incredible to see how it could take one person to bring you back into wrestling. You know what I mean? That's huge. And
Hmm.
AJ has she's influenced this generation, this crop of women wrestlers now. You see a lot of, the Cora Jades and the Roxannes of the world, they'll tell
Hmm.
you that AJ was a huge influence, on their careers and getting involved in the world of professional wrestling. Now, you mentioned that you served in the U.S. Navy, as I mentioned in the early part of the interview when I did my introduction. So, what was it when did you make that decision to say, "Hey, I'm going to join the Navy"? When was that decision made, or how did you make that decision?
So, growing up, my parents kind of instilled in me, hey, we're not paying for your college. You want your college paid, join the military. Because, the GI Bill, if you serve 4 years, the automatic, they'll pay for like your whole degree. Um, and it was high school. That I was going through like all my pamphlets. It was the Air Force. Like I
Hmm.
was stuck on joining the Air Force at one point, but
Hmm.
there were a lot of medical stuff that had disqualified me. But the
Mm.
Navy was able to pick me up. So I graduated high school in June and I left boot camp in September.
Wow, wow, wow. So you spent 8 years in the Navy. So were you looking to make a career there? Is why you stayed as long as you did?
Yeah, I wanted to do 20 years. I wanted to become an officer, which I mean, technically, I could still do that. I have until I'm 40 to make that decision. But it's, you see what's going on right now in the world where they're
Yeah.
having a hard time recruiting people.
Hmm.
Well, when I was in, they had too many people, so they were forcing people out. And because I couldn't pick up rank in a certain amount of time, I was forced out.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
sorry to hear about that. But I was gonna say, if you got to 40, you got about 15 years. You got
Yeah.
you got a long time for your 40.
I mean, and the way things are going now, they may keep raising the age limit up. You never know.
Yeah, it's true. I'm 45 and I'm just like, maybe, but you never know.
Yeah.
But so you talked about, you were in a military sorority, and what were some of the life lessons that you learned while serving in the military?
Ooh. Leadership, one. I mean, my time in the Navy was probably the best time of my life. I got to see 12 different countries, been deployed 3 times.
Hmm.
Um, I was my first ship, USS George H.W. Bush. I was the first crew on that ship to deploy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, got to be in the same, well, it's a hangar bay, got to be in the same area as both of the Bushes, the late George Bush and then George W. Bush. It's, I learned, leadership, do, being self-sufficient and doing things on my own,
Hmm.
pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the drum and bugle corps activity for 2 decades, and those similar lessons I learned too, as far as, having to do for yourself and take care of yourself, being accountable, being dependable, um, being on time management, all those life skills that it could take you so far in the world. And, I'm appreciative of those years that I spent in drum corps, and I'm sure you could say the same about being in the Navy.
And it also looking out for like your call them battle buddies, but like because like we're deployed, got other countries that don't like us,
Right.
and we were 2011 was my first deployment. That was exactly 10 years after 9/11. I'm
Right.
on a ship, last name Bush.
Oh,
So, yeah. And, we would have like do all these drills to just stick together pretty much. Cause like
right.
our lives are in each other's hands.
Indeed. Indeed. Now, in 2017, you started to train to wrestle. So when was that decision? Because I mean, you're going from the Navy to now getting to the world of professional wrestling. When did the light bulb hit and say, I want to be a wrestler? When did that happen? And where did you train?
So, it was my last deployment. I just caught that bug. So I went to a local indie show,
Mhm.
um, took my then 2-year-old with me. It was raining. That's how me and Billy Dixon came across.
Okay.
Um, so I wound up probably, let's say, like a few weeks later.
Hmm.
I went to his school,
Okay.
and it wasn't a really good school. So that's why I kind of, you got some good schools and you got some bad schools and you got some really bad schools.
Hmm.
So, and I went to a seminar where I was told, hey, really need to switch schools. So I jumped to another school, Primetime Wrestling Alliance in Yorktown, Virginia. And I was there for about a year and some change. And then because of, I had to take a step back because, well, not only like what I was dealing with while I was training, but like the transition from military to civilian life took a toll on me mentally. And like, I just needed to
Hmm.
take a step back from wrestling and journal and just get back to myself.
Talk about that for a second. And if I have the floor to do so, tell me
Mhm.
yes or no. What
Yeah,
was that? What was that transition like for you going from, military life to civilian life?
hard. Being a single parent, having, the military pay for my housing,
Hmm.
to not have that anymore, to working from uh, having a decrease in income.
Hmm.
There were times, I've faced eviction, I've faced having my car repossessed, I've taken dead end jobs just to keep myself above water.
Right.
Um, and if I knew then what I know now, like now I work as a government contractor for the Marine Corps.
Okay.
If I knew then, if I had like had the information then what I know now, I feel like I probably would have never went through what I did. But things happen for a reason. The universe puts you on this path for a reason. And it's taken up until now to like kind of accept it.
Got it. Well, number one, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you're doing some incredible things in the world of professional wrestling, and we're going to get to in just a little bit. But when you were getting started, obviously, you're transitioning into the wrestling broadcasting space. So when you started out, what was the best piece of advice that anyone gave you as you were transitioning into wrestling into the broadcasting space?
Um, So I have before I started with my first promotion, I had reached out to Sam Laterna.
Hmm.
I reached out to Sam, I reached out to Alyssa, And it was just a matter of making sure I get my reps in. It was, my first year, it was kind of frustrating. Luckily, I was able to get bookings outside of Virginia, but it was still kind of frustrating that I wasn't able to get more bookings to kind of like prove myself out there. And then like over the summer, I sat down with John Alba and he went through all my stuff. And then he was like, hey, look, like, don't beat yourself up. You're still new. It's going to take at least 5 years to like finally get your foot in the door and get things going. So this year, I'm being a little bit more generous with myself. And I'm still getting the opportunities. Missy has me doing play by play for her new promotion, which is a blessing, because obviously she sees something in me. I said last year I wanted to work during WrestleMania weekend. I have a booking during that week. So it's just went from focusing on my long-term goals, which frustrated me because I felt like I could never get there, to focusing on like each of my short-term goals.
Right. And first off, before we go any further, huge shout out to John Alba. He's I work with him at the world famous Monster Factory. He's a wrestling manager there for World Renown, which we hate World Renown, but in the real world, John Alba is truly one of the good people in this industry. And I urge anybody that is trying to get into the ring announcing, commentator, space, or even as a wrestling manager, or whether it's journalism or anything of the sort, hit up John Alba on Twitter, Instagram at John Alba, JONALBA, and go to his information as far as shooting him an email, and as far as getting on his calendar, as far as seeing what he can do, as far as taking one of his courses, because he and I have talked, in the past about a couple things, and he was extremely helpful and a great resource. So I definitely encourage anybody to reach out to him. So as you've been working, like I said, and we crossed paths about 2 years ago, just on social media, what has been some of the challenges as a woman in this industry?
I just being a woman in general, I could say like personally, I've been told by some promoters that most people worry about looks, how you look. So that was kind of like an insecurity of mine. I've been body shamed by some promoters.
By the way, and let me just say this, by the way, to that individual that did body shame you, I actually knew about that incident, and that individual is no longer is promoting any wrestling whatsoever. And I actually am using my platform to let everyone know that actual situation was handled. Trust. Go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, dealing with that, I kind of, when I pull from like stuff to study from, I
Mhm.
don't pull from wrestling. I do, but I see myself like overall in the world of sports. So
Mhm.
I'll look at Joy Taylor. I can't think of her name, but she does play by play for ESPN, the college football. So, I kind of get my inspiration, and, if they're able to do it, I can do it.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you're going outside of wrestling, because obviously, they tell you, look at old tapes, look at, this, or look at Lillian Garcia, you being a female, Lillian Garcia, Samantha Irvin, and who is doing tremendous work right now with WWE, but
I personally watch Melissa Santos.
mhm. Okay, okay. But even like Joy Taylor, who is doing good work on Speak on FS1. Shout out to Joy Taylor, who does awesome work and who's climbed the ranks in the sports media space. But you mentioned it earlier, and we'll talk about Bell to Bell in just a moment. So, name some of the promotions that you have worked for, not that one we talked about before, but name some of the ones that you have worked for and what those experiences were like for you.
So I got my foot in the door with Pro Wrestling Magic in Richfield Park, New Jersey. Steve Off and Rob Williams gave
Hey,
me a
Steve
chance
Off.
to
Huge shout
show.
out to Steve Off, my man.
Yeah, I'll be forever grateful to them. I've also worked for an all-female promotion that's no longer existing. That's where I met Missy. Um, I've worked Next Up Pro, which is actually technically my home promotion in Hampton, Virginia. Um, Pro Wrestling Vibe, which is a LGBTQ plus promotion.
Mhm.
I had the opportunity to go, well, my job actually had me on the West Coast in Oregon. And luckily, I was able to call the Queen of Thorns tournament for DOA in Portland, Oregon.
I remember reading about that. Cool. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
And a fight. In Maryland. It was in DC, but don't DC don't really like independent wrestling, so we've had to move everything. All the DC promotions pretty much had to move from working in either Northern Virginia or the Maryland area.
May I ask,
Um,
what was the issue in regards to DC? Was it more or less no fans? I mean, just explain because you
no,
have more experience.
the fans wanted wrestling in DC. It was the commission that was giving the promotions a hard time um, with their outrageous fees. Um, the I don't want to put accusations out there, but the doctors were kind of overstepping their boundaries with some of the with some of the workers. So it was to a point like where we would promote somebody, but that day the doctors disqualified them.
Wow.
So yeah, but it was just mostly the unethical practices from the DC Commission, which they're fighting. It's on the city count. I think it's on the city council level. Um, I think there's supposed to be some court stuff happening, but
Okay.
hopefully it gets situated and we can bring the independence back to DC because we have a lot of great talent in the DC area. Trish Adora came from
Yes.
there, Eel O'Neill, Jordan Blade. All of us, collectively, great talent. It's just like need to shine more, and yeah.
Wow. Well, I hope that that situation gets resolved because that's an incredible area to tap into with talent wise and the fans,
Mhm.
and there's money to be made. So I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why mess it up? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I mean, money was being made, but the commission took it.
oh well, that'll do it for you.
Yeah.
So you alluded to it, and we'll go right into it. I had Missy Sampson on the show a few episodes ago. Check it out at the D-Lew You can check out Missy Sampson's interview, and she is the promoter, the owner of the new all women's promotion Bell to Bell, in which Savannah Gall will be doing commentary for. So number one, I wanted to ask, how do you feel now that there is not only there's a all women's promotion, but it's actually being ran by a woman who's going to look out for everybody? Talk about that a little bit and how the selection process went in regards to you being brought on board.
So to me, I prefer women's wrestling being ran by a woman. because we have seen most instances out on the indies, males trying to run women's promotions and nothing good comes out of it.
You betcha.
The getting taken advantage of,
Mhm.
um, financially, emotionally, all of this.
Right.
Um, so, and Missy's, with her experience and her background, she's the perfect person to run this promotion. Um, because when I first started out at where we met, she was running the locker room. Um, she looked out for us. Um, it was kind of crazy how like me and her crossed paths. I think it was like my second show, and I was shadowing Rosaria, and she didn't know who I was. So at the time, so you know, it's like when I say she's very protective of her locker room, she's very protective of her locker
And
room.
I can, and let me
So
say, I can just say, I'm actually 1 month older than Missy, and she still looks out for me like I'm her own child. So
mhm.
she definitely looks out for everybody for sure. 100%.
And getting to know Missy, she's the only person I'll take constructive criticism from. Um, when it comes to how to like navigate um, through this business, because like I said, like when I first started training and everything, I was introduced to the bad side of the
Yeah,
wrestling business.
right.
So, as far as the selection process, Missy is going to put who she wants, in her show. And Rosaria and I have worked. She's based out of Baltimore. She's actually the first person I shadowed under, because she does CZW and a couple of promotions in Maryland, and
Okay.
she was actually the first person I shadowed under when it came to doing wrestling broadcasting, and now me and her are doing commentary together.
That's awesome. I want to first and foremost congratulate you on number one, becoming a broadcaster for the brand new promotion Bell to Bell. March 2nd, you can check out the very first event for Bell to Bell. Tickets are on sale now. If you go to belltobell.com, and it is spelled Belle, the number two, Bell. That's Bell to Bell. And like I said, an all women's promotion ran by a woman. So I'm actually going to be in the house as a fan. I'm just going to just enjoy the show. And I know a lot of the talents that are on there. Obviously, shout out to Gabby Ortiz, Vicious Vicky, Miranda Vinette, Christina Marie. The list goes on and on of the talented women that are going to be on this roster. And the roster is going to grow and grow and grow. And like I said, if you want to listen to more in regards to what Bell to Bell is all about, again, check out the archives at the D-Lew So you're a writer for Wrestling Republic. Talk about that. I mean, listen, you do it all. I mean, you served our country. You're a mom. You're doing the thing. You're involved in wrestling, and now you're a writer. So talk about your responsibilities as a writer for Wrestling Republic.
So, kind of a bittersweet story of how I actually came back into as far as the wrestling business, like actually being involved. Um, my grandfather was in hospice at the time. And, I was scrolling, trying to find something to take my mind off of everything. I was scrolling and I happened to see Wrestling Republic was looking for writers. So I emailed them, actually sent them my high school stuff because I was a writer for my school newspaper my senior year.
Okay.
And then at the time, I wrote up something randomly about Bray Wyatt and sent it in, and then was automatically brought on. I've been there since late 2021, and now I'm head of scouting, which I like to cover the indies. I don't, as much as other people like to write for WWE and AEW. I feel like it's too much dirt sheet stuff. I rather highlight the indies and the up and comers. So that's what I've been doing as far as my writing. And I try to each month showcase at least 10 wrestlers that folks should be looking at, and I kind of like focus on each region, and then a little bit later I'll start going internationally.
Well, I gotta tell you, I think publications like that is important, because obviously when you're highlighting the independent circuit, that is to me the bread and butter of the business. Because where are they looking for new talent? The indies. Where are they looking for the next superstar to main event WrestleMania? The independent circuit. Heck, when Cody Rhodes left WWE in 2016, where did he go? He went to the independent circuit. When Drew McIntyre got let go in, was it 2014, wherever it was, he went right to the indies and he was killing it. So, I mean, the bread and butter, and I think over the last maybe 7 to 8 years, I would say the last 10 years, the indies has really revived itself. And now there's so much money to be made on the independents because the fans want it. And thus, now there has wrestlers that can truly make a living off of doing this. So I encourage a lot of people to support your local indie wrestling promotions that are out there. I don't care what part of the part of the United States you're in, or internationally, if you listen to this outside of the United States, support your local independent wrestling promotion, because you never know which one you'll support is gonna be main eventing WrestleMania. That's for sure. Now, you're currently in school for journalism at Virginia Commonwealth University. Now, I would imagine doing a lot of your writing led you to this decision in going back to school.
So I mean, the journalism thing was my goal, like the whole time. I had a dear friend, elderly friend that was my next door neighbor back in Cincinnati that encouraged my writing. And then I enjoyed it in high school. And then it kind of like, because of the way my time in the Navy was, I was always out to sea, always on deployments. I really didn't have the time to go to school. And then, I had my son in 2014, and that's when, for him, it's like, yeah, I really need to go to school and get my degree. So it's been a while, it's been a long journey, but, I'm hoping the end is near and I can finally have that degree.
Well, I'm pulling for you, to get that degree and take your career to the next level in greater heights for sure. Now, you talked about your son, and we're going to talk about this right now. So you're residing in Richmond, and how are you able to balance? And because I marvel at people that are parents that they still are trying to, live their goals and dreams, but you're able to manage all of those things. How do you compartmentalize all of those things, Savannah, and making sure that your son is, taken care of, and then you got to make your bookings, and then there's work, and then there's school, all these things. So how are you able to juggle all of those things at the same time?
I recently moved to Richmond. I was still in Norfolk the whole time. And, my transition was so bad, my parents had intervened and helped me with because, as a single parent. And then finally got a job in the DC area, and I was finally able to move. But, my parents have been a huge help to me, throughout, my son's life. And then, funny how you say balance, because I know I had to do one CW last weekend. My son had a 4-H presentation in the morning, and as soon as he was done, we got in the car and went to one CW. So I'm starting to take him with me to bookings. At the same time, he has his baseball. So I let him do that. I let him do his 4-H with the help of my parents. Um, but, another thing that the Navy taught me was working under pressure. And, that's something that I'm good at.
You know what? When we're under pressure, it brings out the absolute best in us as humans. So,
Yeah.
I wish you all the best in continuing, obviously with motherhood and everything with school and pro wrestling. So you mentioned, some of your short-term goals and your long-term goals. Let's break those down. So what are some of those immediate short-term goals, and what is that long-term goal for Savannah Gall?
Short term, obviously, get more bookings. There are, my dream promotions. West Coast, I want to work Defy. I've been to a couple of their shows while I was out there and absolutely loved it. Um, Beyond here on the East Coast, I would like to work with them. Um, Black Label Pro out in the Midwest. I would also like to go back home to Cincinnati and work a couple of promotions there. Internationally, a lot of people want to work, New Japan and a lot of Japanese promotions as an English commentator. I actually want to work WXW Germany as a broadcaster. Um, Long term, if there was any big promotion, would be between Ring of Honor and TNA. And if it doesn't work out in wrestling, hey, I'm a sports person. I could branch out. And, I love talking about the Bengals. I love, the Reds. Um, I'm hoping to start, my own podcast and my own channel and, kind of like you, not just cover wrestling, but to branch out and talk about other sports. Um, so yeah, those are my goals. And, we're in the beginning of 2024. We have a whole year and I hope, I hit all those spots.
Well, Renee Paquette, does some stuff with the Bengals outside of AEW. So, I mean, the sky's the
Mhm.
limit. If you have the passion, the drive, and the determination to spread your wings and do some incredible things in the sports and entertainment space, hey, you never know. You might be covering the Oscars someday. You never know. But you know what I mean? Hey, listen, I don't know if you're a Swiftie or not, but hey, Taylor Swift has made her way and I'm not trying to say nothing bad about the Swifties. I don't want nothing bad happening to me. Just saying. But I'm just saying, but look how she's influenced millions of people of her fan base to turn into football. So it's like you never know as far as you using all of these experiences that take you to another stratosphere that you never thought you could ever dream of. But it's all about the things that you learned in the Navy, things that you learned from your family. One more question I have for you is if you could tell me one funny story that you've experienced in wrestling.
Uh, oh gosh. Um, I would say the majority of my fun times have always happened with, Billy Dixon and Elijah Friday, because, we came up together, went to the same school. Pro Wrestling Vibe is actually Billy's promotion, and, working with him, I would say looking back at it now, it seemed kind of messed up how so we had to there was the main event for a show. It was Killian McMurphy and Edith Surreal.
Hmm.
Um, Killian, we were trying to bring out Killian's character. He was supposed to do a presidential inauguration. It was sponsored by Chick-fil-A. And then those that are aware with the LGBTQ community knows the Chick-fil-A does not support the LGBTQ community. So me and Billy are creative people. And so we were trying to tell a story um, with that,
Hmm.
involved like trying to hype up the match.
Hmm.
And it just so happened the presidential inauguration that Killian was throwing was sponsored by Chick-fil-A. So I cut a promo in front of Chick-fil-A.
Oh my God.
After hours. Yeah, it was, after hours, I was hyping up the shows, saying, the workers were working relentlessly to get all the food and stuff ready for the inauguration. Um, so we have put that out. We brought up Caitlyn Jenner in the, because Killian was dedicating it to Caitlyn Jenner. So,
This is great. I love it.
we put it out. Edith was in character. She she said something in regards to Killian McMurphy, but I guess people took her serious. And you know how the IWC is. It
Oh
got blown
boy.
up out of proportion. Uh, and it lasted at least 72 hours. So me being who I am, I don't like offending anybody. I'm like the biggest, hugest ally for the LGBTQ plus community.
Same here. Same here. Hmm.
So, I was kind of getting, hey, I just started out here, and me personally, I wasn't getting shots thrown at. It was more towards, Killian and the promotion. But that right there, I mean, it was kind of funny, but that right there, we got for QWI Feud of the Year between Killian
Wow.
and Edith, because what I did and what I helped with kind of it solidified the feud that they were doing, and it went to other promotions, and other people were able to see that, and it makes me feel good that I was a part of it.
Incredible. That's awesome. That's a good story.
Yeah.
Where can the people reach out to you? Social media, the whole nine yards.
Um, on Twitter, Savannah RG513, Instagram, Savannah Ray here, which kind of Billy and Elijah and Gabriel Kai kind of put, because when I start out my interviews, I'll be like, "Hey, Savannah Ray here at this promotion," and they like to make fun of it. So I was like, you know what? That's going to be my catchphrase, and I'm going to use that as my IG handle, and I'm going to use that as my merch. But pretty much those two, Twitter, X, and Instagram. I'm trying to get the energy to start my TikTok stuff back up too.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Savannah, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on the D-Lew podcast to tell your story, not just in the world of professional wrestling, but obviously with life in the military, and I want to thank you for serving our country. I pride myself on whenever I see, a veteran of any of our armed forces, I shake their hand, I look them in the eye and I say, thank you for serving. I'm telling you, thank you for all that you've done for our country and serving and what you're continuing to do in the world of professional wrestling. And I'm sure our careers hopeful to cross paths sooner than later.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.